My phone rang while I was driving home, and when I answered, I heard my father's voice, shaking with fear. He said, "Turn off your phone right now. They're tracking you. Do not go to the house." I asked him who was tracking me, but he didn't answer. He just whispered, "They're already close. Do not let them find you." And the line went dead. For a moment, I thought it had to be some misunderstanding. But 10 minutes later, I looked in my rearview mirror and saw 3 black cars speeding toward me, blocking every way out. Before I continue, make sure you subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from, because this story is not just a warning, it's a real example of how quickly your life can change. My name is Lena Hartley. I am 29 years old, and I work as a paramedic, someone who is trained to respond calmly in the worst moments of other people's lives. I never imagined I would become the one needing rescue. For most of my adult life, I believed I understood danger. I knew how to handle panic. I knew how to stay rational, and I trusted that emergencies came with answers. But the call I received from my father that day didn't come with any answers. It came with fear, his fear, and that's what terrified me the most. My father, William Hartley, was not the type of man who panicked. He was a former intelligence analyst who saw things in the world that normal people never heard about. Even after retirement, he was always careful. He never used voice assistants, refused social media, and unplugged the Wi-Fi every night before going to bed. I used to tease him about being paranoid. But after my mother passed away earlier this year, I began spending more time with him. That's when I noticed something had changed, not just in his habits, but in his eyes. He was watching the windows more often, checking his phone less, and every time a dark SUV passed our street, he would stand completely still until it was gone. On the day everything happened, I had just finished a long shift and stopped at the grocery store to pick up ingredients for dinner. Dad had finally agreed to let me cook for him, and I was excited, almost relieved, to have a normal evening. The sun was setting as I drove through the familiar roads to our neighborhood. Everything looked quiet, peaceful, the kind of safety you don't question. My phone buzzed with a text from my brother Jason, reminding me to lock my door when I got home. He worked in cybersecurity and was always sending warnings. I glanced at the message, smiled, and put my phone back into the cup holder. A few minutes later, my phone rang. It was my father. I answered casually, expecting him to ask what time I'd arrive. But there was no greeting, no hello, only his breathing, heavy, uneven. My chest tightened instantly. Something was wrong. "Dad?" I said. That's when his voice came through, low and urgent. "Turn off your phone, right now. They're tracking you. Do not go to the house." My mind struggled to catch up. "Who is tracking me?" I asked. "What are you talking about?" I heard a door close on his end, like he was moving quickly. My father almost never raised his voice, but when he spoke again, his tone was sharp. "Lena, listen to me. If you go home, they will find you. Turn off your phone and get off the road." Then, he hung up. At first, I didn't move. I just stared ahead at the road, gripping the steering wheel, trying to process what I had just heard. Was he in danger? Was this some kind of medical emergency? Had someone broken into our home? But then my phone buzzed again. Unknown number, another buzz, then another. My father never called without reason, and he never told me to run. I lifted my eyes to the rearview mirror, and that's when I saw them. 3 black SUVs turning onto the road behind me, accelerating fast. They stayed perfectly aligned, like they weren't just driving, they were moving with a purpose. My heartbeat quickened. Everything inside me screamed that my father had been telling the truth, and at that moment, I realized I wasn't driving home anymore. I was being hunted. The moment I saw those black SUVs appear in my rearview mirror, everything inside me shifted from confusion to pure survival. They were not just cars. They were in formation, moving with synchronized precision as if I had suddenly become the center of a planned operation. My fingers trembled as I reached down and powered off my phone, my father's warning echoing in my mind. The road ahead split into 2 lanes, one leading back toward town, the other toward the highway. Without thinking, I took the highway ramp, tires screeching as I merged into traffic. For a brief second, I hoped they would continue straight. But that hope died when all three SUVs turned onto the ramp with me, closing in faster. My heartbeat pounded against my ribs like a runaway drum. My mind raced with questions. Who were they? Why were they after me? What did they think I had? My father's words repeated in my head. Do not go to the house. Whatever they wanted was not an accident. It was planned, calculated, and they were certain I would lead them to it if I kept driving home. That meant I had something they needed, and they believed I didn't know it. Suddenly, the SUV in the far left lane accelerated and pulled alongside me. I kept my eyes forward, pretending not to notice, but I could feel their presence like a physical pressure. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a man in the passenger seat wearing an earpiece, speaking without moving his lips. He glanced at me once, then reached for something near his dashboard. Panic rose in my throat. I pressed down on the gas pedal, weaving between cars as I tried to create distance. The second SUV moved into the center lane ahead, slowing down as if to force me to brake. They were trying to trap me. My hands tightened on the steering wheel, so hard my knuckles turned white. Every scenario played out in my head. Stopping meant capture. Turning toward populated areas meant putting innocent people at risk. Listening to fear would get me killed. I had to outthink them. My mind flashed back to what my father once told me when teaching me how to drive defensively in emergencies. People watching you will always expect you to run straight home. Never do what they expect. With that in mind, I took the next exit, one that led not into a neighborhood, but into an industrial district filled with empty lots and construction sites. It was a risk. Fewer people meant less chance of help, but also fewer obstacles in a chase. The SUVs followed without hesitation. As the road turned into a long stretch of cracked pavement bordered by chain-link fences, I spotted something ahead, a gated construction zone with a narrow service entrance partially open. My pulse spiked. I made a split-second decision and swerved toward it, hitting the turn hard. My tires skidded, gravel flying as I slid through the gap in the gate. For a second, I thought I was safe, but the first SUV crashed through the gate behind me, splintering it open. I jolted forward in fear. I had seconds to act. I drove deeper into the construction yard, weaving around piles of metal beams and parked machinery. The industrial landscape rose around me like a maze. Behind me, engines roared. Then my phone, even though powered off, buzzed in the console. My breath caught. Was it still active, or had it received a delayed alert from a device not controlled by me? Before I could think further, my brother's voice came through the car's Bluetooth system. The phone must have reconnected for a split second while powering down. "Lena," Jason's voice said urgently. "They are using signal triangulation. It doesn't matter if your phone is off. Your car is connected. Shut down the tracker in your dashboard." My eyes darted to the center console where the infotainment system blinked. Of course, modern vehicles had built-in tracking systems. They were not chasing me. They were chasing the car. Without hesitating, I reached for the power button and held it down, the entire dashboard going dark. The navigation system shut off. Bluetooth disconnected. The silence inside the vehicle was instant and suffocating. I didn't know if it worked, but I had no time to doubt. Up ahead, the construction site opened into a wide gravel clearing with exits on either side. I took the narrower exit toward the tree line, branches scraping the sides of my car as I pushed through an unpaved access road. Behind me, the SUVs slowed. They were no longer chasing in formation. They had lost my exact position due to the tracker being disabled. For the first time since the call, I could breathe, but only for a second. Jason's voice came again through a backup channel in the car's speaker system, one that didn't rely on a phone. "Listen carefully," he said, his voice low and tense. "Dad knew this was coming. You need to get to him, but you must not drive to the house. They are already there." In that moment, a single terrifying truth hit me. This wasn't random. This wasn't a mistake. My family had been living under a threat I knew nothing about, and now I was in it too. And whatever they were after was already connected to me. The trees whipped past my windows as I drove deeper into the access road. my heart still pounding from the near capture. I gripped the wheel tightly, trying to keep control of both the car and my spiraling thoughts. Jason's voice continued over the low-frequency channel, the one he had secretly installed in my car months ago. Just in case. I had laughed at him then, teasing him for being paranoid. Now his voice was steady and precise, a lifeline in the chaos. "There's an old ranger station off the service road in Blackwood Forest," he said. "Dad can meet you there. It's off-grid. No cameras, no cell towers. Go there now. We'll reroute them away from you." My father's last words echoed through my mind. "They're tracking you." And suddenly every memory from the last few weeks began to make horrifying sense. The strange vehicles parked near our neighborhood, my father unplugging the modem every night and shredding documents, the way he would stop mid-sentence whenever the television switched to local news. He had been preparing for something. He just never told me what. The access road narrowed into a dirt path, and branches scraped loudly against my car, forcing me to slow down. I glanced in the rearview mirror. No black SUVs, no headlights. For the first time in 20 minutes, I was alone on the road. But I wasn't safe. A cold awareness settled over me. The people chasing me didn't need to see me to find me. They had tools, resources, and power far beyond anything I had ever imagined. As I drove deeper into the forest, my mind raced with questions I couldn't escape. What did my father know? Why were they coming after me? And what did they think I was carrying? The ranger station finally came into view, an old, weathered building surrounded by pine trees and shadows. My father stood outside waiting, no longer the calm, composed man I was used to. His shoulders were tense, his eyes scanning the tree line, and he held a heavy duffel bag like it was more important than his own life. As soon as I stepped out of the car, he rushed to me and pulled me into his arms. I expected comfort, but instead his first words were, "Did you shut everything down?" When I nodded, he exhaled, visibly relieved. "Good. Then we have minutes, not seconds." He led me inside the ranger station. The interior looked abandoned. Dusty furniture, broken windows, old forestry maps on the wall. But my father moved with purpose. He set the duffel bag on the table and unzipped it. Inside were folders, flash drives, a stack of old hard drives, and a thick envelope. He took a breath, his voice low and controlled. "Lena, you need to listen to me and not panic," he said. "But everything happening is because of me. And now they think you have what they've been trying to find for years." My throat tightened. "What are you talking about?" I asked. My father looked directly into my eyes, and for the first time, I saw fear, real fear, behind his steady exterior. I worked for the government, but not just in intelligence. I was part of a division tasked with investigating unauthorized surveillance networks, tracking programs not sanctioned by any agency, systems with no accountability. I thought I was working to stop them, but I discovered the people running them were not foreign enemies. They were our own people. They were using mass data collection for private gain, targeting citizens, controlling information, and eliminating anyone who tried to expose them. My breath caught. But what does that have to do with me? My father opened the envelope and slid a single photo across the table. It was me, standing outside a pharmacy last week, talking to a patient. The photo was taken from a distance, like surveillance footage. He then placed another photo. This one was inside our house, me eating dinner. The air in the room seemed to vanish. My voice cracked when I finally spoke. "They've been watching me?" He nodded. "They think I passed the evidence to you. They believe you are the only loose end left. That's why they are hunting you." I stared at him in disbelief. Every sound in the forest outside felt amplified, every shadow more threatening. My father then reached into the duffel bag and pulled out a silver flash drive with a red marking on it. "This is what they're after," he said. "This contains the raw data, proof of everything, names, accounts, recordings." He placed it in my hand. It felt ice cold. "You now have the choice," he said. "We can disappear, live off-grid, and let the world continue without knowing the truth, or we can expose them and risk everything." In that moment, the weight of everything settled on my shoulders. My old life, being a paramedic, living peacefully, believing danger was something that happened to strangers, was over. I looked at my father, The man who had protected me all my life, now asking me to help protect something far greater than ourselves. My hands trembled, but my voice was steady when I answered, "We expose them." And that decision changed everything. The moment I said, "We expose them," a visible shift came over my father. It wasn't relief, it was resolve. He nodded once, then reached inside the duffel bag and handed me a small device that looked like an old radio transmitter. "This is our lifeline," he said. "This will send the data to multiple encrypted servers at once. Once activated, there's no going back. They won't be able to stop the leak, but they will know exactly where we are." The world around me seemed to slow. My pulse thudded in my ears. Outside, the sky had darkened, not with night, but with the heavy stillness that comes before a storm. My brother's voice crackled over a secure channel from the corner of the room where my father had set up a temporary relay. "They found the decoy route," Jason warned. "The SUVs turned around. They're heading your direction. You have maybe 10 minutes. If you're going to do this, do it now." My father was already pulling out old maps, cross-referencing them with the GPS blockers he'd placed around the area. It hit me. Every unusual thing he'd done these past few months wasn't paranoia. It was preparation. He knew this day would come, not because he was afraid, but because he had chosen it. I took the flash drive in my hand, its metal edges pressing into my skin. So much power in something so small. A lifetime of secrets. Evidence that could dismantle an entire underground empire of corruption. My father motioned me over to a rugged laptop. "Insert it," he instructed. My fingers hovered over the USB slot for a moment. I wasn't just inserting a piece of metal into a machine. I was about to change the trajectory of countless lives, including my own. With a deep breath, I slid it in. Instantly, lines of code began racing across the screen. Green, yellow, red, systems activating, secure nodes connecting, data uploading. My father typed rapidly, bypassing firewalls that attempted to shut the transmission down. Alarms from the laptop started flashing warnings. Breach detected. Countermeasures deployed. My father cursed under his breath. "They're trying to block it. They're inside the network right now." Suddenly, headlights flashed through the broken blinds of the ranger station. Then another pair. Then another. Multiple vehicles. Engines rumbling. Doors slamming. Shadows moving outside. My breath caught in my throat. My father looked at me, grabbed the transmitter, and pressed a button. A light on it turned blue. "The upload is live. We need 30 more seconds," he said. Outside, loudspeakers crackled. A cold, commanding voice called out, "William Hartley, we don't want to hurt anyone. Step outside and bring the girl with you. You have something that does not belong to you." My blood ran cold. They weren't pretending anymore. They weren't hiding. My father stepped toward the front of the building, his jaw tight. "They can't risk us leaving," he said. "They need to contain this before it hits the servers. They're going to breach." The door rattled violently. Fists pounded against it. Then, silence. A sound far more terrifying than noise. My father's eyes flicked to the upload status. 78%, 82%, 87%. Jason's voice came through once more. "Dad, Lena, they deployed a jamming field. Once the upload hits 100, you must destroy the transmitter or they will trace the route and shut it down from the source." My father nodded. "Understood." He tossed me a second device. "When I say run, you run. Don't look back." Outside, a metallic clink echoed, followed by a deafening explosion as the door was blown off its hinges. Smoke and debris clouded the air. Figures in tactical gear flooded into the room. My father stood his ground. "Keep them away from the laptop," he shouted. I ducked behind an overturned table, clutching the transmitter to my chest. The screen showed 92%, 95%, 97%. One of the tactical agents spotted the computer and lunged forward. My father met him head-on, tackling him to the ground. Another agent raised a weapon toward my father. Time slowed. Without thinking, I ran forward, slamming the transmitter against the wall to divert attention. The leader turned his gaze toward me, eyes cold, emotionless. "You don't know what you're doing," he said quietly. "That data will cause global instability. Economies will collapse. People will lose everything." My voice came out steady, surprising even me. People are already losing everything because of you. Behind him, the upload reached 100%. A loud beep filled the air. My father looked at me across the chaos. In his eyes, I saw pride, sorrow, and finality all at once. "It's done," he said. Then he smashed the laptop with the butt of his gun. The leader's expression hardened. He gave a single nod to his men. They surged forward. My father turned to me one last time. "Run!" I ran through the back exit as gunfire erupted inside the station. Branches tore at my clothes as I sprinted into the forest. The transmitter still clutched in my hand. My legs burned. My lungs screamed, but I didn't stop. Behind me, the sky glowed with the lights of helicopters now swarming overhead. The truth was out. There was no going back. Everything had been set in motion. In that moment, I understood. I was not just running for my life. I was running into a new future, one where my name would be forever linked to the day the world woke up. I ran through the forest until my lungs ached, and every muscle in my body begged me to stop, but adrenaline kept pushing me forward. Behind me, the sky flashed with searchlights, and the echo of distant shouts faded into the trees. I didn't know whether my father was still alive, or if he had sacrificed himself in those final seconds, but I knew one thing with absolute certainty: the upload had completed. The truth was no longer trapped in a hidden drive or buried beneath layers of government secrecy. It was out, irreversible. In the moments that followed, the world responded faster than anyone expected. News stations across the globe were interrupted with emergency broadcasts. Websites began crashing as millions of people tried to access the leaked files. Names of powerful individuals, CEOs, elected officials, intelligence officers, it was all there, exposed in real time. Live data maps showed international wire transfers, recorded conversations, secret surveillance programs, tracking citizens without their knowledge. Social media exploded. Every channel, every platform, every screen in the world was suddenly reflecting a single truth. The people we trusted most had been using that trust against us. I found refuge in an abandoned fire lookout cabin deep in the woods, following coordinates my brother had texted me on a secure line before all networks became overloaded. When I arrived, Jason was already there, pale and shaken. The moment I saw him, I collapsed into his arms, the weight of everything hitting me at once. He held me silently until my breathing steadied. "Dad knew this was the only way," he said quietly. He knew his life would be the price. Tears stung my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. Somehow I could still feel my father's presence with me, not as a memory, but as a force, pushing me to stay strong. Over the next few days, the world transformed in a way no one could have predicted. Governments scrambled to deny involvement, but the data was indisputable. Civilian protests erupted worldwide. Some cities went into lockdown to control the public response. Investigations began, arrests were made, resignations happened hourly. The people had been handed the truth, and now history itself was being rewritten in real time. But exposure did not mean safety. If anything, I became a symbol, unintentionally, a key witness, a threat to those who remained unexposed. There was no going home. My face was already circulating online with headlines like, "Daughter of whistleblower may hold final evidence." Some called me a hero, others called me a criminal, but I wasn't either. I was just a person who chose to do what was right when the world around me had traded right for power. Jason and I were placed under federal protection, not from justice, but from retaliation. We lived in undisclosed locations, never staying in the same place for too long. Life became a series of safe houses and encrypted messages. Yet for the first time in a long time, I did not feel afraid. I felt awake, alive. There was grief in me, heavy, constant, for my father and the life I had lost. But there was also something else, purpose. Weeks later, I received a sealed letter without a name. Inside was a short handwritten message in my father's handwriting. The note said, "If you are reading this, it means you had the courage to do what I could not. They took everything from us because we saw what they wanted the world to ignore. But you gave that world a choice. Never regret choosing truth. Whatever happens next, you changed everything. I held that letter to my chest and finally let the tears fall. I didn't know where my future would lead or how long I would have to live in the shadows. But I knew this. I had honored my father's last act. I had protected the truth he died for. And somewhere inside, I hoped that one day I would be able to walk in the open world again, not as someone hiding, but as someone free. In the end, this isn't a story about fear. It's a story about awakening, about the moment you realize that the most dangerous people are not the ones hiding in the dark, but the ones standing in the light, pretending to be protectors while quietly pulling the strings of our lives. My name is Lena Hartley, and my life will never be the same. But if sharing my story can remind even one person to question what they're told, to pay attention when something doesn't feel right, then every sacrifice will be worth it. If this story opened your eyes or made you realize how easily our lives can be controlled without us even noticing, make sure you subscribe to the channel right now and comment where you're watching from. Your voice matters, and your awareness is your greatest protection.